Hi everyone, George Christie here with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to another edition of the Win Educational Webinar Series. Now today's webinar is sponsored by G3 and it's titled Third-Party Logistics, The Road Ahead. A really great presentation, highlights some of the challenges that wineries of all sizes are facing, whether they're supply chain constraints, warehousing shortages, cost of fuel going through the roof, labor shortages, etc. It's just simply not getting any easier out there. And the presentation really focuses on the benefits of having the right third-party logistics partner to help you get through all of that. Now, today's presentation is going to be delivered by Yvonne Sams. Yvonne is the Senior Director of California Logistics with G3, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. Now, as is always the case with our webinars, we record them a couple of days in advance, and we do that so that the presenter can watch the broadcast at the same time you are and take those questions as they come in, as opposed to having to wait till the end of the presentation to take on those questions. So literally, as the questions come to you, submit them into the chat and Yvonne will take them as they come in. Okay, I think that about covers it. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Once again, I want to thank G3 for all of their support and sponsorship. And now I want to hand it off to Yvonne. Yvonne, take it away.
Well, thank you, George. I appreciate being here today and super excited about having a discussion about third-party logistics and the road ahead. My name is Yvonne Sams, and I am the Senior Director of California Logistics here at G3 Enterprises. Want to definitely encourage you to participate in the live chat for Q&A, so please ensure that all questions go through the live chat. So we're going to go ahead and get started and going to talk about today's world and how it's affecting logistics, how we're applying technology to logistics, and then California logistics challenges and finding the 3PL efficiencies. So how does it impact wine logistics, today's world and what's going on? What are the impacts? So from a world view, we're going to talk a little bit about, how the Ukraine situation is really driving some challenges across logistics. I know you guys are feeling it from especially a global fuel market. It's driving rates up. We're also seeing the fuel market driving supply chain disruptions. And in addition to that, we're seeing this great resignation or the great reshuffle, also hearing it be termed as the great boomerang. You probably know some of those people who've left our companies and have come back. And so that's definitely having an impact across the world. There's this other piece that is global inflation. And, last week they talked a little bit about global inflation actually starting to peak. We aren't necessarily seeing that yet, but really gonna hopefully see some of this come down, and hopefully it is peaking, but it is driving some challenges across the world. And then what we found was this generational advancement of technology. We've leapfrogged 2 to 3 generations of technology. The pandemic really allowed us to jump this generational process in terms of self-service and direct consumer. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the two of those in just a minute. The question is technology here to stay? And as I was traveling this beginning of this year, coming out of the pandemic and, events being back in person, on my travels, what I noticed was as I was checking into hotels, there was this kiosk that was there to check me in. Customer service reps no longer were there to greet us from a hotel. It was this kiosk. And when it was time for me to check out, the same thing, there was another kiosk for me to check out. And then as I was walking and leaving outside the hotel, I don't do this very often, but for valet, you go and again, have another kiosk to interact with to get your car. And it started making me think, wow, technology is really here to stay. And because of the Great Resignation, because of people not being able to be hired into these customer service roles, folks had to figure out how to replace people, and the way it was done was with technology. And then as I kind of continued my journey the last 6 months around the state, interacting with these fast food chain customer service kiosks was, again, surprising to me. These originally started in kind of the big cities, not a big deal. But as I was in a small town in the Central Valley, I'm seeing these being put up all throughout, the fast food chains. You can have entertainment where you just, download an app and be able to move around on this electric, what is it called? It's a scooter, electric scooter. And so you can have fun around the big cities. Even going to the gym, there are these QR codes where you can scan and figure out what the safety measures are of that piece of equipment, what type of muscle it's going to work on, and any other information you need to know about that piece of equipment just through a QR code. And then went to a conference this year, a big wine grape conference called the Unified Wine and Grape Symposium, where instead of checking in with a customer service person, we checked ourselves in via computer. We printed out our own badges. We put everything together, and we're off on our merry way. And then most of us during the pandemic saw these QR codes at the tables of a restaurant. And they're still there. Restaurants aren't having to print these menus anymore. My 70-year-old father, with his what he calls Happy Meal phone, is even able to bring up a menu on his phone. And so this is something that, from a generation perspective, have taught us how to very simply interact with technology to get the things done that we need to have done. My neighbor, 80-year-old neighbor, was able to order her groceries via Instacart. Same thing. This is something that we would have been able to do even just a couple years ago. And within the last year, even a rural community like mine has the availability of Instacart and receiving groceries at your doorstep. There's also a number of apps, new apps that didn't even exist pre-COVID. There's the Starbucks app that I interact with quite a bit. There's, you can order cookies via app, fast food. There's also DoorDash, where you can have someone go pick up your fast food and deliver it to your home. A Venmo, there's certainly being able to opportunity to pay people via an app. And then there's Uber, which is able to tell you in real time where the vehicle is and how fast they'll get to you, or how soon they'll get to you, and then how soon you'll be able to get to your destination. A number of you probably interacted with one or multiple of these apps. Something that has just really become part of our lives that through the pandemic really accelerated this process. So what does that mean to applying technology to what we do in California logistics? And we'll talk a little bit about what this means. So for us, we have implemented a warehouse management system with a dashboard that allows you to go in and see where your product is in real time. What stage of the process is it in? Where is it being stored? What's your inventory look like? We have implemented QR codes, which provides turn-by-turn directions for our carriers that are hauling grapes for us. And this has been super cool because if you own a vineyard, there's a specific way to get into the vineyard, and there's a specific way the trailer needs to be positioned so that it can be loaded, so that it can exit the vineyard in a safe way. And so we mapped over 10,000 vineyards that we haul for with QR codes. And this was very, very helpful for our drivers to be able to get into a vineyard in a very safe manner. Also, we implemented GPS, which allowed us to have an uptime of 99%. It's a solar panel GPS. Our old system our hardware were cell phones, and they were on a 3G platform. So the new system is allowing us to have 99% uptime along with solar panels. So you're not having to charge all of the units prior to them being used. So we're super excited about our new GPS system, both hardware and software. This year in 2020, we're piloting a program that is a G3 mobile app, and it's not exactly like the Uber app, but it's very similar. It's allowing for our carriers to see what loads that they're going to be asked to move, what the locations are. They'll have a QR code to be able to get into the turn-by-turn directions with understanding where the vineyards are. This is specifically for our ag hauling. We're going to pilot and trial it there, and then we'll move it to all of our other lines of business. So we don't just move grapes, but we move tankers, we move dry vans and refrigerated vans. And so this will allow our customers eventually to know exactly where their product is in real time. But the first phase of that approach is to have a mobile app that our carriers can utilize to be able to identify and tell us where their load is in real time. From a warehouse management perspective, we call it WMS. What this system is going to allow you to do is monitor inventory in real time, will allow an increase in self-service. And so as an example, if it's an extreme heat day and you want to put a hold on product for weather, this system will allow you to do that. So it's really an exciting opportunity for our customers to go in and interact, self-serve essentially, and interact with your inventory in real time. Future state, we're looking at allowing folks to be able to view orders and then start looking at what the industry is doing. So we're going to have some data and information into the system of what are others doing and comparing that to what your orders are doing. And so we have a lot more information about that later, but there's some opportunity for us to really provide you with access to what the industry is doing. Are they shipping, ahead for the 4th of July? As an example, for the 4th of July holiday, but you aren't seeing your orders moving. Why is that? And you can start to identify root causes and try to move from a reactive state to a proactive state. The next thing we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about is the mobile app that I was explaining for our carrier and for our driver, very similar to that Uber concept. What this is going to allow our carriers to have rate visibility. Today, they can find rates, but it's a little more clunky and cumbersome. They can actually assign drivers via this app. They have load visibility. They can know where that load is in real time because we'll have it tied to our GPS system. And then there's a number of compliance things we require of our carriers. So the carrier will be able to interact with this app and ensure that they're in compliance for all the things that we require. And then from a driver perspective, that there's information and alerts that they'll receive. They'll have navigation and communication. So we talked about those QR codes that they can use to allow them to get into vineyards or to get into processors or to get into a warehouse. And then there's event management. And the event management we mean is things like I picked up my load, I'm on the road, and I've delivered my load. And so those are going to be really important, especially as we move into tying this information into a customer portal that will be able to allow our customers to have real-time visibility. This is the first phase. We've got to be able to interact with the drivers and carriers first before we can give our customers access. But that is the big picture future state. We're looking at 23 to 2024 to being able to provide customer access as we're piloting this season. And then proof of delivery and payment processing is something that the driver will have responsibility for, so that when we get to the point where the customer has access, you will see the proof of delivery in real time, which will allow us to be able to convert payment for processing as well as invoicing in real time. We're going to move into the logistics challenges in California and what it's going to take for us to overcome some of the challenges and what we need to do to work together from a California view. So something we didn't talk about from a global view is the drought impact on water availability and deliveries. This is something that is, not just unique to California, definitely for the West, but California is and continues to be impacted by this. And we know that this is driving lots of challenges and concerns as water is really a first line of defense. If it's not available, there are some definite challenges. And which leads us to the wildfire risks. Water is the first line of defense. When it's not available, it creates some challenges for us. And there is concern, as we saw our first fire down south in Southern California. And as the wind continues to blow, there's concerns around how this is going to impact us and what it's going to do for California. We're seeing California fuel prices continue to be at record highs. We'll talk about fuel in a minute. Fuel continues, just like on the global side, to create supply chain disruptions, as well as increasing warehouse demand for deploying product so that we're not out of stock and that product can stay on shelves. There's definitely, we're seeing a definitely heightened requirement for warehousing, and we're seeing them built all across the state. And then looking at, studying those D2C trends, those direct to consumer trends. So as we saw people using their apps and, having deliveries to their home, the pandemic really allowed us to reach out to those, businesses that we want product delivered directly to our home. No difference in wine with the wine being delivered to our homes. The smaller wineries definitely have taken over this market. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And just like we saw on the global side, labor shortages continue to be a challenge for California, especially in those customer service areas. In addition to trucking, we're seeing a labor shortage in trucking as well. We'll talk more about that in a minute. This slide is showing the fuel, California specifically, fuel prices. And for those of you who were around in 2008, that was our original peak for fuel, was 2008. And what we've seen some spikes here, but 2020 fuel, diesel specifically, is off the charts. It doesn't even fit on this chart. And so something that, we'd like to say, and traditionally fuel falls off in the fall. I heard this morning that the feds are thinking about opening up the reserve that we have within the United States, but that reserve is pretty tiny and is just a Band-Aid for the big picture of things. So fuel is going to continue to be an issue. We're hoping it'll come down in the fall like it normally does, but Ukraine will continue to drive some of that, as well as, seeing if we can increase production here in the States and not having to rely on other countries, especially Russia, for fuel. So not a lot of good news on fuel yet. We talked about warehousing, but want to spend a few minutes talking about the warehousing demand. And the warehousing vacancy rates have sunk to a 27-year low across the state. And so we put a little grid down at the bottom here that shows national vacancies, which is under 5%. When we look at Central Coast has less than 2.5% vacancy. So they are very, very tight market there on the Central Coast. Central Valley also below that 5%, with the Bay Area having a little bit more. And this is with millions of square feet being built across the state. It's still not enough as we're trying to forward deploy product. The retail stores aren't quite as the brick and mortar, people are not going to the grocery stores or to the brick and mortar stores as frequently. The pandemic has allowed us and shown us how we can order through apps and direct to consumer, essentially to be delivered right to our homes, which is creating this warehousing demand. So this is real. This is an opportunity. If you need warehouse space, something to definitely reach out and talk to us about. But this is something that is creating, demand, definitely. So next, we're going to talk about D2C. And what we saw in 2020 was massive growth. And there's been a steady growth with D2C in 21. And so it's starting to level out. But what we're seeing is the price increase per bottle being shipped in 2021 is almost 12% growth. And so those wineries with fewer cases produced and higher prices grew at a much higher rate. That's at 26.8% are those bottles that are being shipped. That is for limited size wineries, which means that it's less than that 999 cases produced annually. So if you're a winery that's thinking about getting into D2C, this is a great opportunity and time to be partnering with a D2C provider, someone who can help you out and provide this as a service. The next piece here is looking at D2C by wine region. And we see that growth here in 2019, 2020 across all regions. There's definitely been some winners, like in Washington. We are seeing it level out. But I think the important thing here is it's here to stay. And if you're looking at getting into this and or doing more, this is an area that G3 could certainly help. And of course, talking with a partner, it would be really important to get your product shipped and moved as you are seeing and wanting to get into this market. Which brings us into the labor shortage issues across the industry. From a trucking perspective, what I used to show in this slide ended in 2025. We're here in 2022. And with this new graph going out to 2030, I really thought that the new graph would show that we were going to level out. And that's actually not what it shows. It shows that we continue to have challenges across the market. Some of the reasons, a majority of the reasons are retirements. Baby boomers are leaving trucking industry. Millennials have made it pretty clear they're not interested in filling those seats. The Gen Zs are becoming interested, and we have the Walmarts, the Amazons of the world, the big guys, the Hub, the Snyders, paying $110,000 a year to drive truck. So the Gen Zs are actually looking at it going, that may be something I'd be interested in. But it's not enough to fill the seats of those that are retiring, and it's not enough for the growth that we're seeing across the industry in terms of not only the direct to consumer, but the warehousing and storage needs that are occurring. And there's a couple of top tactics to address some of these labor shortages. And these are all things that your companies are probably doing, but just to kind of review a couple of them, improving retention practices is really, and implementing them is going to be really important. What we're seeing is a more reliance on temporary staff. That is something that absolutely is going on in the networks and industry, but also an increase in headcount, implementing and improving recruiting practices, building our own internal flexible workforce so that there's some job sharing that is going on, as well as adding new schedules. What's not listed here is the whole work from home opportunities, as well as companies are wanting to go back full time in offices. We're seeing people, not interested in that, wanting that flexibility, like that flexibility of being able to work from home and work in the office. Obviously, those that are essential workers, that creates a little bit of challenge because they have to be in the office or at the plants or in the warehouse every day or in the stores. So that does create some challenges. How can we work with those teams to keep people in-house with us so that they aren't leaving and then coming back? So what does this all mean? I've given it's not all gloom and doom, but what can we do from a ag hauling specifically, warehousing and transportation perspective to find efficiencies and working with a 3PL partner? So some of the things that G3 has been working on is expanding our warehouse capacity and capabilities. We're adding temperature controlled storage. We have 4 locations across the state that we are in today. So American Canyon, the Central Valley. In the Central Valley, we have about 5 million square feet of warehouse space. San Miguel and Paso. We have the ability to reach out to a regional distribution center network across the country. So we're scalable. We can actually rail product out to other parts of the country through the national rail system, and we'll put solutions together from a truck or a rail and then a distribution landing point with the final mile to be able to get product across the country. We also have both global and local suppliers, and that work in packaging. It allows us to reduce lead times, is that more eco-friendly and temperature-controlled packaging, and then providing repack and rework services. We have that available in all 4 locations as well. From a transportation perspective, we are focused right now on providing services within California, so connecting that 101 corridor from the North Coast to the Central Coast within a dry van and refrigerated van, as well as a less than truckload option and opportunity. What the less than truckload, what we refer to as LTL, allows is for that flexible delivery service. It's at 1 pallet, it's at 4 pallets to get from North Coast to Central Coast, or the opposite, Central Coast to North Coast. We can provide temperature control as well as consolidation. So if you need things to go across the country, we have a consolidation point that then can go via rail. And we've also implemented as a new service this year, courier service within the North Coast, Central Valley, and Central Coast same day movements, if that's something that you're interested in or that you need. We also are looking at how to continue to be efficient with our bulk wine transportation. So we've been investing in tankers for the last probably 3 or 4 years, allowing us to have smart compartmental tankers as well as large format tankers. So we've been expanding the fleet. We've been expanding the team. Again, focused on that coastal area, so connecting that North Coast to Central Coast. So we've been putting lots of effort in building the team there, as well as our carrier capacity to allow us for same day delivery, as this is sensitive product. We also have an organic certified wash station if that's something that's necessary or needed. From an ag hauling perspective, we have dispatchers throughout the coast, both North Coast and Central Coast. So we have over 30 harvests of experience. And during grape harvest, we're a 24/7 operation. And we have 5 locations across the state, but we definitely have 2 teams dedicated on the North Coast and Central Coast, and then, of course, in the Central Valley. We have specialized equipment, especially for that small lot hauling, 1/2 ton and 2 ton. And what it allows us to do is we have a scalable fleet. So with over 2,000 sets of grape trailers across the state, we can haul 1 truckload or we can haul many. So as we start planning for the 2022 harvest, both whether it's in bulk wine tankers, whether it's courier services, whether it's wine grapes, we want to offer some suggestions on planning. What is G3 doing to get ready? So we've been investing quite a bit in developing our technology efficiencies to make things better, faster, more efficient. We're expanding our warehouses and transportation capacity and capabilities. So we're adding carriers. We're working with bringing on more square footage to provide support as needed. And then continuing to look at transportation options along that 101 corridor. And then we're adding seasonal labor and training. So this is something that's super important during harvest. We recognize that both tankers and grapes are moved, but finished goods also need to be moved around. So we have that scale and flexibility for whatever needs you may have. What can you do to be ready? Early planning with the trucking shortage, as well as the constraints in warehousing. We suggest you plan early. because this will secure and allow you to ensure that your loads get moved, whether it's bulk wine, whether it's grapes. Connecting with your hauling partner early to secure your loads will be really important. Planning for your bulk wine and finished good transportation is important. And then talking to your 3PL provider and strategize and figuring out what solutions can be put together so that it can provide you with not only the best service, but really what needs need to be met to get through the 2022 harvest. So with that, the next thing I would recommend is communicating whatever challenges that you have. This way we can problem solve and figure out together what is going to meet your needs. So with that, I want to introduce my Central and North Coast team. These are the folks that would be providing support and help if you needed it. And their contact information is there. And I just want to say thank you for having me today. And if there's any questions, we can answer them now in the chat. Thanks so much.